Oh, hi. Let's see. Last time we were taking a look at Amazing Spiderman number 60 from 1968. It would be, right, May of 68. And I thought, since it involved the Kingpin, move along with something else. That something else, would be something that would take place, about 11 years later. About 11 years later, and fast forward, 1979, October issue of the Amazing Spiderman. Now, the thing about that, although I say it's October, it would work out to be somewhere around August, midsummer. Usually, memory serves me correctly, the display date and the actual date those books hit the stands or the convenience stores, whatever, was usually 2 to 3 months, minimum 2 months. Sometimes you'd find them still there on the rack, even past their due date, a little bit longer, but usually not. But yeah, it's usually 2 months ahead. But anyway, the reason I went with this is I figured we'd continue with the Kingpin thing. Now, not many people, I'm sorry, number 197, not many people are going to recognize this as a key issue. They recognize certainly the 200th issue as a key for sure, which is in the collection, but that's not what I wanted to show today. Actually, this is one of my copies of this book. If I see it when I'm out there going through bins or in obscurity or whatever, I've always made a note to grab it. Why? That's the thing I want to get down to. The reason is that the book not only has sentimental value, but it has something to do with my development as an artist. The first time I saw it on the rack was in the summer, and it was in a Max Milk in Vancouver, Canada. That was just up the street. Let's see, that would be, was it 16th Avenue and Main? Is that right? 16th Avenue, I believe. Yeah. As far as Main Street goes, just down from Sophia Avenue, I believe. Say more about that. Say more about that when the time comes. Just jogging my memory. Yeah. Well, in that general area where I was living, Main Street, 15th Avenue, between the 7-Eleven and Max Milk, that was where we as kids would get most of our comics, there, and at that time, when we'd go downtown, to the beyond Hastings, down Main Street, beyond Hastings into the downtown core, when we go to the, I guess you'd call it theater district. There were 3 theaters. There was a Capital 6, Cineplex Odeon. They used to, play Bruce Lee movies. You could sometimes even 3 movies in a row. Double features, triple features. But the Capital 6 didn't. That was like mainstream. And right beside it was a place called, and I don't know, it's probably still there. I haven't looked it up, but it was called Golden Age Collectibles. And in there, you could go in there and dig out some back issues if you wanted. It most of my friends really weren't into the back issue thing. But once I got serious about collecting, especially Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, I got a stack of Spider-Man at one point, and then since I had the stack and they were all in order, I just decided to continue. So if I missed anything, I'd go there. But anyway, long story short, the reason why this one was important was, although the first time I saw it was in the summer, I saw the cover, that is, in Max Milk. Actually, I'm trying. No. Yeah, that's right. That's the first time I've seen the book itself. But little did I know, and it must be because the store date, they just wrote it off or whatever and kept it there, because this wouldn't happen. There were the thing is, previous to actually seeing that cover, I had seen it before, although not the actual thing. What it was, let me explain, was I saw some kids had been drawing from it. Why this particular book? Well, I'll show you in a second. It was, here's what it was. It was based on, a friend of mine had come over to my place, and he said, check this out. We were, 9 years old. He said, look at this, right? And he brought out these sketchbooks. Now, I knew him as not being really an artist or anything, so I was curious about that. He told me he had picked up these sketchbooks from a couple of kids at school. I still know their names, for Christ's sake. It was so many years ago. But two of the kids had drawn pictures from this particular book. And the one artist freehand drew. It was really remarkable for his age. I think, I'm pretty sure, honestly, I could say he was better than I was. And see, for me, at the time, I was like the best artist I knew amongst my friends and stuff. But it was like one of those awakenings, or rude awakenings, when you realize, hey, this kid was better than me. But I don't remember being bothered by it at that age, as much as it might dent the ego nowadays. But anyway, long story short, he had drawn some freehand sketches from the book, and another kid had, he was interested in comic books too, superhero stuff, but he was one of the first kids that got a light box. And the light box, as some of you know, is like it's basically a plastic box with a light under it, and it's used for tracing purposes. And they, at the time, DC was offering or some toy company was offering the light box with stencils, like black and white cards that you would put on top of the light box, and you could trace your superheroes, your Supermans and Batmans and that. So he came in with this pile of drawings, some of the freehand stuff by Alec Nicolette. That was the one kid. And the other kid's name was Shimei. And he had all the light box drawings on it. And, at that age and at that time, all boys read comics. I don't care if you were talking about the nerds or the jocks. Like, everyone read comics. So if you saw some freehand art or artwork by someone in pencil that looked pretty decent, you were pretty impressed by it. So there was some Daredevil stuff in there too, but a lot of those images just burnt into my brain. And I thought, these are fantastic. And I had noticed it depicted Spider-Man with his arm in a sling as he was fighting the Kingpin. And I didn't even know what that was about because I wasn't aware of the actual issue. I had seen the cover, but I didn't line up the two. I didn't flip through it, so to speak. But here was the image that was, let's see here, that was, that they really enjoyed drawing. It's an action sequence. I think it's 6 poses. Here we go. Here it is. And I saw them in Sketch, and they were just fantastic. They were just fantastic. Here's the page. Alright, you getting that? See that there, right? It's, I'll bring the page back so you can see it's all like one big splash, right? So all these different poses and I'll bring the page back so you can see it's all like one big splash, right? So all these different poses and sequences. Let's see. Now, there are a couple of more that were seen too. And they were drawn alone. Let's see. They're separate images. Yeah. Here's one where it's a little bit closer up, where Kingy takes it in the pot. Spidey shots. Here, yeah, here we go. Boom! Right? There's that one. And also, I remember Nicolette had drawn this picture. I didn't know what it was from, but I found out later once I actually got the issue. This one here, where he's laying on the floor, dazed, his bells rung, right, and all this. But I found out later once I actually got the issue. This one here, where he's laying on the floor, dazed, his bells rung, right, and all this. Well, anyway, they were really well done. And so by the time I got a hold of the issue, oh, and I want to show you this splash page too. That's important, and I'll show you why in a minute. That's important, and I'll show you why in a minute. See the splash page here? Yeah. Yeah. If you look closely in this particular issue, I actually dumb kid I inked. Look at Spider's the blue areas of Spider-Man, or actually his outline and the shading. It has a pen run over it. I don't know what I was thinking. Right? I was tracing over it with a pen. Not tracing it to draw it, but just, I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain it. I suppose I was trying to learn the feathering. Stupid thing to do, anyway. But I don't care. I mean, it's not the only copy of the issue I have, but whatever. This is the original one that I picked up that was mine. And I'll show you a couple other pages, and I'll explain the reason why, too. First, show you a couple other pages, and I'll explain the reason why too. The first couple, 2 or 3 pages. All right, here, see that? Okay, all those images. Try and remember these images. Okay, there's Kingpin, Left for Dead in an issue. I think it was 170 something way back when, or 160 something like that, where Kingpin was pretty much thought for dead, drowned, or whatever. Well, he explains how he broke free and, was kind of like out of his mind for a while and then recovered and all that stuff. Well, anyway, there you go. You got hit there. Ends up broke. But anyway, yeah, so by the time I got a hold of it, I couldn't wait to start drawing them, and I did as a kid. Unfortunately, I neither have the original drawings from those kids, those sketches. I never, I had seen the sketchbook, but I never obtained it myself. And the sketches I did at that time, I don't have. However, this is the funny part, I even forgot I had these. I wasn't even sure. I thought, I swear and I just checked my archives, my old drawings. Now, these were drawn a few years later. Still pretty young. Still hadn't entered. Now, these were drawn a few years later. I was still collecting. I was still pretty young. Still hadn't entered high school yet. I was 13 years old. And here are my sketches of that. I can't even tell. Now, these were drawn a few years later. I was still collecting. I was still pretty young. Still hadn't entered high school yet. I was 13 years old. And here are my sketches of that. I can't even tell. They look really coarse. I'm not sure if I lightboxed these on a television and traced them or actually sketched them. They're kind of rough. I wasn't big on the tracing thing. As you'll see, I'll show you some images where I'm trying to copy things, and they don't look quite the same, but they never really do. But anyway, these are from that time, those years. Here are my sketches of that fight sequence. Right? See that there? Remember, right? Some of them are partially inked, and I was learning. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like, they're okay. They're okay for that time. Here's the opening of the splash. Here's the opening of the splash page. I just went ahead and tried to draw it myself, my own rendition of it. You know, this isn't traced. This was just, attempting to replicate what I was seeing. I don't know. Somewhere in my education as a young artist, I just figured if I could replicate what I was seeing, then I was on the right track. You know, it was a replication of the first page. It doesn't look anything like the original. It does. Well, I mean, it's pretty good, but it doesn't. It needed work, that's for sure. But I was having a great time copying this stuff and trying to learn the craft. And there's old Kingy crawling out of the sewer there after he's had his comeback out of the lake and all that. Whatever. Yeah, so there they were. There were my sketches of that. But yeah, those few poses, I just always loved that page. And let's take a look at it again there. And it was always my reason for appreciating this particular book. Like I said, it's not a key issue or anything, but it's just, to me, it's just fantastic, right? Fantastic. There you have it. It's 197, right? October, which would be probably August 79. So 79. Now I looked in the back, and there is a soap box, so I want to get that in there. But as far as the issue goes, I decided I was going to take a look at this. Now, in the mid-'80s, Marvel offered up a series, it was an index on the Amazing Spider-Man. This is issue number 9. And they did the Fantastic Four, too. Basically, what you have inside are the write-ups for the actual issues, what happens, who was responsible, and the cover, right? Reading the story. So I thought I'd use that for this issue of 197 and read that. We'll go through that, and then I'll leave you Stan's soapbox. There's no I noticed in this issue there's no spider's web where the male is found, But no biggie. There is the bullpen, and he discusses those. I don't really want to get into the bullpen stuff so much. Maybe later, but I'll put in the soapbox and the summary to get us started. So again, we're looking at October 1979, issue 197 of The Amazing Spider-Man. Oh, and incidentally, those images are actually, it was a joint effort. It was a joint effort, actually. The two artists, it was Keith Pollard did the layouts, right? And Jim Mooney finished, right? By this time, Stan's not really involved in the editorial department. But I'll tell you who is. Jim Shooter, consulting editor. Marv Wolfman wrote this. Anyway, we'll get into the index for the info. Let's see. Now this is one issue after the supposed death of May Parker. And that would be 196. So we pick up at 197. And away we go. 197, October 1979. Cover credits. Now the cover. Artist Keith Pollard, penciler, and Frank Giacola is the inker. Lettering, typographical. Okay. Story, The Kingpin's Midnight Massacre. 18 pages. Credits. Editor, plotter, scripter, Marv Wolfman, as already mentioned. Consulting editor, Jim Shooter. Breakdown penciler, Keith Pollard. Finishing art penciler, inker, Jim Mooney. Letterer, Joe Rosen. Colorist, Ben Shaw. Supporting characters, Betty Brant Leeds. Appears next in issue 229. See comment in listing for issue 195. Gloria Grant, Joe Robertson, J. Jonah Jameson. Villains. The Kingpin, also in flashback events following the appearances in issue, there it is, 164, and preceding his appearance in issue 195, moves to the Orient following this story, where one of his operations is to engineer the escape from Vietnam of Nguyen Ngoc Khoi, as revealed in Spider-Woman 46. Appears next in Daredevil 170. And oh boy, does it not get good there. Kingpin makes the transition and gets over into Daredevil's territory. That starts getting good. But anyway, Silvermane, no actual appearance behind the scenes. In flashback with the Kingpin, his appearance chronologically follows his appearance in issue 180 and precedes his appearance in Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, Annual Number 2. These indexes are really deep. They suck you into the other crossover issues and whatnot, which is interesting. Spider-Man Annual Number 2. See the first two comments in the listing for issue 180. And one of his henchmen, first appearance, hired by Silvermane to kill the Kingpin in the flashback, face not revealed, dies in flashback. The unarmed burglar, and the first Mysterio. Right. Yeah, I remember this now. These are leading up to Mysterio jumping into the picture, which was a pretty good series, too. Spidey still with his broken arm. I think by that time he actually has it casted. He has it in the cast. Here it's broken, and he's fighting like a motherfucker just to, in a sling. It's crazy. Alright, here we go. Synopsis. Oh, and by the way, it's funny that issue 198 and 199, he still has the cast, but not on the covers. You see? As Spider-Man regains consciousness, he sees the Kingpin standing over him. Spider-Man shakes his head to clear it, while the Kingpin tells him how he survived his plunge into the river after their previous battle. Spider-Man did not find him in the murky water because the Kingpin swam to a drainage pipe, hauled himself out of the water, and collapsed. When he awoke and crawled out of the pipe to the surface, his memory was gone. For months he wandered the streets not knowing who he was. But then Silvermane learned what had happened to him. Silvermane sent a hired killer to try to run him down with a car. But when the car slammed head-on into Kingpin, his muscular, bulky frame survived the impact. The assassin died in the collision. Hospitalized for many more months, the Kingpin regained his memory, and a mere 18 hours ago he returned home to his beloved wife Vanessa. When he told her his plan to gain revenge on Silvermane, she told him he had 24 hours to finish his criminal career or she would leave him. After divesting himself of his criminal empire, he found he had 6 hours left. He intends to use those 6 hours to finally get rid of Spider-Man. Spider-Man knows that in order to continue his Restwell nursing home mission, he must defeat the Kingpin. So he suddenly leaps from the floor and slams into the master criminal. He lands several blows before the Kingpin pulls the rug out from under him, and the battle begins in earnest. Spider-Man is hampered considerably by his broken arm, but he still manages to hold his own. The combatants pummel each other and smash one another into walls as the battle drifts into the Kingpin's private gym. The Kingpin tries to strike Spider-Man with a barbell weighing several hundred pounds, but Spider-Man easily evades the barbell and smashes the Kingpin into a shelf of gym equipment. Then he bounds out of the gym. Meanwhile, at the Restwell nursing home, Ludwig Reinhardt tells the burglar that Peter Parker will not be bothering them again. Now, continues Reinhardt, the burglar can tell him what he was looking for in the Parker house. The burglar replies that since he plans soon to dispose of Reinhardt, he will tell him, but Reinhardt has plans of his own for the burglar. Momentarily stunned after being smashed into the shelf, the Kingpin comes to before Spider-Man can find an exit from the mansion. The Kingpin pushes a button to electrify the ceiling Spider-Man is clinging to, and when Spider-Man drops to the floor, the Kingpin overtakes him and presses his attack. At the same time, at the Daily Bugle, the door to J. Jonah Jameson's office opens and Joe Robertson strides out, briefcase in hand. Wearing his hat and coat, Jameson appears totally dejected as his city editor bids him farewell. He has He has chased Robertson away for good. He says to himself, just as, I'm going to read that sentence again with some space so I can use it in the splice. He has chased Robertson away for good, he says to himself, just as he had lost his wife, his son, and everyone else close to him. He has built a wall around himself, he continues, and he cannot bring himself to tear it down. The Kingpin pursues Spider-Man through his mansion. Spider-Man hides in a room, and then he finds an electrified lance that is disguised as a pole lamp. Suddenly attacking the Kingpin with it, he briefly knocks him unconscious. But before Spider-Man can leave the room, the Kingpin starts to shoot at him with his obliterator cane. Spider-Man snatches the cane with his webbing, and the combatants pummel each other, exchanging blow after blow. At last, the Kingpin has Spider-Man by the throat. Groggy from the punishment, Spider-Man manages with his webbing to pull a shelf down onto the Kingpin's head. Then, The master criminal throws the shelf at Spider-Man, breaking a hole in the floor. Spider-Man exits through it. Spider-Man finds himself in the basement of the mansion, but before he can discover a way out, the relentless master criminal is hot on his trail. Spider-Man hides himself in the darkness, but the Kingpin slams a support beam with all his might, which collapses part of the building onto Spider-Man and leaves him helpless. The pain from his broken arm renders Spider-Man unable to move. The Kingpin declares himself the winner of the battle and drags Spider-Man upstairs. As the Kingpin gloats, Spider-Man tries to gather what remains of his strength. The Kingpin aims his obliterator cane directly at Spider-Man, who desperately tries to keep the Kingpin, boasting to give himself time to recover. Suddenly, the clock strikes 12, and Vanessa enters. The Kingpin tells her that he needs just a moment more, but she tells him that he must decide now between continuing his life of crime or leaving it forever, and starting a new life with her. After an agonized minute, the Kingpin decided that he loves his wife more than he enjoys his success at crime, and more than he hates Spider-Man. He puts his arms around her, and they walk together out of the room, leaving Spider-Man on the floor, defeated. And that's the synopsis in the official Marvel Index to The Amazing Spider-Man, number 9, and that is December 1985, so fall of 85. I remember picking this one up, this would be in Oakville, at a place, it's no longer there, it was called, it was a mom and pop shop called Target. I think it was called Target Comics. Mr. and Mrs. White had run it. And I had just moved there, actually. Well, I had been there, oh boy, since March of 84. So, yeah. Oh, actually, in that event, that would mean that I had moved from there, from that. Anyway, rambling. But anyway, that's the synopsis. Now, the soap box for that issue, I thought I'd throw in there too. What the hey? Let's take a peek. Yeah, as I said, there's no spider's web in this issue. It's gone the way of the dodo. Actually, and in this, in the bullpen bulletins, they show the cover of an issue of a publication they have here that was coming out at the time, and it was Alice Cooper by Marvel Comics. The write-up, it's in the item section of the bullpen. But anyway, in the middle of that is Stan's soapbox. So let's read that. Hoo boy! I've had some tough columns to write in all the years I've been bringing these mellifluous little messages to the ribald ranks of Marveldom assembled, but I've never had one that was tougher than this. Since I don't really know how to start, I might as well just take a deep breath and plunge right in. Remember a couple of issues back when I devoted the entire column to the sensational subject of the great new mag we're about to launch? Remember how I told you it'll be the biggest and boldest thing since, what is that, Thought's new hairnet? Or is that Thor's new hairnet? And now, here comes the heartbreaking part. Remember when I told you the title would be Odyssey? You do remember? I was afraid of that. Okay, you probably guessed the rest. After me ramming the title down your trusting little throats, we find we've got to change it. Only to mix up Marvel could a calamity like this happen. We can't use the name. Someone else in another part of the country has a mag with the same name. That name being Odyssey? Yeah, wasn't there a publication? On a personal note, I remember something about an Odyssey by a pen and ink artist in the pages of, I think it might have been heavy metal. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I think some of the early heavy metal did Odyssey. But there were probably other people that used that title too. Gotta change it. Let's see. So we've had to come up with a new one. It'll be the same pandemonious publication, the same magnificent magazine, the same super sensational collection of brain-blasting strips, dynamite illustrations, and cataclysmic concepts. Stan. Only the name has been changed. So here we go again. Disregard the previous message. Erase the other name from your bionic memory bank. Clear your cerebral circuits and reactivate all remembrance functions. Ready? Okay. The new name of the greatest magazine we've ever created, which will go on sale in the very near future, the magazine which every fantasy fan, every comic book fan, every fan of science fiction, sword and sorcery, mysticism, magic, adventure, super spectacle, and high-tension, non-stop sheer excitement is waiting for is, hang on to your earmuffs, eager ones, epic. That's it. You heard it right. Epic. It's short, stark, and to the point. Epic. Thou must not, thou dare not, thou shalt not forget Epic. The magazine that will make every other publication, except ours of course, seem weak and wane and woe begone by comparison. Well, I'm not going to labor the point if you don't remember it by now. Don't worry. Everyone will soon be talking about it, so you'll be reminded easily enough. Epic. Wowee! What a title! It can't possibly miss. After all, when you spell it backwards, it comes out Psype. I know I shouldn't have said that. You can bet some smart guy is going to walk to the newsstand and ask for a copy of Psype. So forget it. Whoa. Wipe it out. It's epic. Here, it rhymes with wepic, which, like most of what I say, doesn't mean a thing. Next-ish, I'll clue you in to some of the frankly fantastic features you'll find in Epic. Hey, I just thought, won't Epic look great on a t-shirt? We'll start designing one right away. So save your pennies, pilgrim. The age of Epic will soon be upon us, and we don't want to miss a single part of the Epic celebration. So till next time, don't let a minute go to waste. Make a list of all the words you can find that rhyme with Epic. We'll give a free subscription to the nut who comes up with the most. Just send them to the Epic Epidemic, CO Marvel Comics, 575 Madison Avenue, New York City, New York, 10022. And now, I've got to leave you and race back to the Epic office. Shooter and Marshall are helping to design the contents page, and I heard a rumor that they're trying to letter their names bigger than mine. Yours till Perry White becomes our newest editor. Excelsior! Stan.